The note was only 5 words. Your partner is lying to you. But for the waitress who wrote it, those 5 words had taken 12 years to say. Because she knew the man sitting across from the billionaire. She would know his face anywhere. In her nightmares. In a crowd of 1,000. He was the reason her father was dead. And tonight, in the most expensive restaurant in the city, she watched him get ready to do it all over again. To someone new. So she made a choice. She picked up a pen. And she decided that this time, somebody was going to get the warning her father never did. This is the story of Sofia Vega. And the night she finally stopped running from a ghost. Sofia Vega was 31 years old, and she carried her whole family on her back. She worked nights at the Laurel, one of those restaurants where the forks have their own names and a bottle of wine costs more than a month of rent. Sofia was a size 18, warm-eyed, quick on her feet, with a smile she could turn on for any table no matter how rude. She learned a long time ago that a good smile kept the tips coming. And the tips kept her mother's apartment paid for. Because there was only Sofia and her mother now. There used to be more. 12 years ago, the Vega family had been doing fine. Better than fine. Sofia's father, Hector, had built a construction company from a single truck and a pair of calloused hands. By the time Sofia was a teenager, Hector Vega employed 40 people. He was proud of that. 40 families ate because of work he created. He used to say it like a prayer. And then a man came along. A smooth, smiling man in a beautiful suit who called himself an investor. He told Hector that a man with his talent was thinking too small. He had a plan to take Vega construction statewide. National even. All Hector had to do was sign here and move the company's money into this fund and this account and trust him. Hector trusted him. Hector was a man who believed people were good. Within a year, the money was gone. All of it. The company's accounts drained. The pension fund Hector had set up for his workers emptied. The smiling man and his beautiful suit had vanished, leaving behind a tangle of shell companies and a paper trail that led nowhere. The lawyers said there was nothing to be done. The man had been too clever. He'd done it before, they said. He'd do it again. 40 families lost their livelihoods. Hector lost everything he'd built. And he lost something else, too. The thing that had made him stand up straight. He never recovered. He died 14 months later. A heart that the doctor said was healthy and that Sofia knew was simply broken. The smiling man's name was Marcus Crane. Sofia was 19 when she watched him destroy her father. She never forgot his face. She promised herself at the funeral that if she ever saw that face again, she would not stay silent. She just never thought she actually would. Until tonight. The man at table 9 was a billionaire named Everett Sloan. Sofia knew the name. Everyone did. Everett Sloan had built a renewable energy company from nothing, solar, wind, the kind of thing that powered whole cities now. He'd come up poor, the papers said. Built it brick by brick. He was the rare billionaire people actually seemed to like. And tonight, he'd booked the private dining room at the Laurel for a very important dinner. Sofia had been assigned to serve it. 6 guests, lawyers, mostly in expensive suits. A celebration by the looks of it. There were contracts on the table, thick ones, and a bottle of champagne already chilling for the moment of signing. And at the head of the table, beside Everett Sloan, sat the guest of honor. The new partner. The man whose money and connections were about to take Sloan Energy global. Sofia set down the breadbasket. She lifted her eyes to the guest of honor's face. And the floor dropped out of the world. 12 years older, grayer at the temples, a better suit, even than the one she remembered. But it was him. It was unmistakably, undeniably him. Marcus Crane. Sofia's hands started to shake. She set the bread down too hard. One of the lawyers glanced up. She forced the smile, the good one, the one that kept the tips coming, and backed away from the table, her heart slamming against her ribs. She made it to the hallway before she had to put a hand on the wall. It was him, the man from her nightmares, the smiling man. And he was sitting next to a good man. Everyone said Everett Sloan was a good man, with contracts on the table and champagne on ice. About to do to Everett Sloan exactly what he'd done to her father. Take the keys to a man's life's work and burn it to the ground. Sofia stood in that hallway and felt 19 years old again. Helpless, voiceless, watching it happen and unable to stop it. But she wasn't 19 anymore. She crept back toward the private room and listened. The smiling man, Crane, was holding court, telling some charming story, and the table was laughing. Then Crane's phone buzzed. He excused himself and stepped just into the hallway, near where Sophia stood frozen by the service station. And he took the call in a low voice, the way men do when they think no one who matters can hear. "It's done," Crane murmured into the phone. "He signs tonight. Once I'm in, I move the energy contracts into the holding company within 90 days, just like the others. He's leveraged to the eyeballs already. He just doesn't know how far. By the time he figures it out, I'll be 3 countries away, and he'll be explaining to his investors where $11 billion went." A soft, familiar laugh. The same laugh. These self-made types are all the same. They think because they built it, nobody could ever take it. Makes them easy. Easiest marks there are. Then he hung up, fixed his smile back on, and walked back into the room to ruin another good man's life. And Sofia Vega made her choice. She could walk away, keep her head down, keep her job, tell herself it wasn't her business, that rich men's deals weren't her problem, that she tried to fight Crane once and lost, and there was no point trying again. That was the safe thing, the smart thing. But Sophia kept thinking about her father, about how no one had warned him, about how he'd signed those papers believing people were good, and it had killed him, about the 40 families, about the promise she'd made at his funeral. If just one person had pulled Hector Vega aside 12 years ago and said, "Don't trust this man," everything might have been different. Sophia could be that person. Tonight, for someone else. She went to the service station. She took a clean cocktail napkin and a pen, and she thought about what to write. She couldn't write all of it. There wasn't time, and a waitress accusing a celebrated financier of fraud at his own signing dinner would sound insane. She needed Everett Sloan to do one thing. Stop. Wait. Look closer. Not sign tonight. So she wrote 5 words. "Your partner is lying to you." She folded it twice. And the next time she cleared a plate from in front of Everett Sloan, she slipped it under the edge of his bread plate, her hand barely shaking at all. Then she walked away, and she waited to find out if 12 years of silence had been worth breaking. Everett Sloan found the note a minute later. Sophia watched from the doorway. She saw him unfold the napkin. She saw him read it. She saw him go very still, the way a man goes still when something he's been quietly worried about deep down suddenly has words. He looked up. He scanned the room. His eyes found the waitress in the doorway. And Sophia did something she hadn't planned. She held his gaze, and she gave the smallest shake of her head toward Crane. Not him. Don't trust him. Everett Sloan was not a stupid man. You don't build an empire from nothing by being stupid. He'd climbed out of poverty by trusting 2 things, hard work and his gut. And his gut had been whispering at him for weeks. About how fast Crane wanted to move. About the strange structure of the holding company. About the contracts his own lawyers had flagged and Crane had smoothly explained away. He slipped the napkin into his jacket. And then, smoothly he stood. "Forgive me," he said to the table. "I need a word with the restaurant about the wine. I want a night to be perfect." He smiled. "Marcus, give me 2 minutes." He walked out of the private room. And in the hallway, away from the others, he found the waitress. "You wrote this," Everett said quietly, holding up the napkin. It wasn't a question. Sophia's mouth went dry. This was the moment. Lose the job or save a stranger. "Yes," she said. "I did. And I know how it sounds. I know what I am, a waitress, and he's him. But please, please, don't sign anything tonight. Just don't sign tonight. That's all I'm asking." "Why?" Everett's eyes were sharp. "Tell me why." "Fussed." And here is where Sofia Vega lifted her chin. Because this, she had waited 12 years to say. Because his name is Marcus Crane, and he is a professional liar, she said, low and fierce. He finds men like you, self-made men who built something real. He flatters you. He tells you you're thinking too small. He gets you to move your money where he can reach it, and then he leverages everything you own, strips it bare, and disappears through a hole in a stack of shell companies that no lawyer on earth can follow. Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. "I know the holding company in your contracts is real, but the assets behind it are smoke. I know he's planning to move your energy contracts inside 90 days. I heard him say it on the phone in this hallway 4 minutes ago. He said you were leveraged to the eyeballs and didn't even know it. He said you were the easiest kind of mark there is. He laughed. Everett Sloan went pale, because every single word matched something his gut had already flagged. The 90 days, the holding company, the leverage he'd quietly taken on at Crane's gentle suggestion, telling himself it was normal. How do you know all this? He said. How do you know exactly how he works? Sofia's eyes filled, but her voice stayed steady. Because 12 years ago he did it to my father, she said. Hector Vega. He had a construction company. 40 employees. Crane took all of it. The accounts, the pension fund, everything. 40 families lost their jobs. And my father, her voice cracked just once my father died of it. 14 months later. A broken heart, even if the death certificate called it something else. She wiped her eyes, fast, angry. I was 19, and I watched it happen, and there was nothing I could do because nobody warned us. Nobody pulled my father aside and said this man is a snake. She looked Everett dead in the eye. So I'm pulling you aside. I don't want anything from you. I just couldn't stand in that doorway and watch it happen to another good man and stay quiet. Not again. Not when I had a pen in my hand. The hallway was silent. Everett Sloan looked at this woman, this waitress, with tears on her face and 12 years of grief in her voice, and he believed her down to his bones. Go back to work, he said gently. Act normal. Don't let him see you've spoken to me. His jaw set into something hard. I'm not signing anything tonight. And Ms. Vega, he paused. Thank you. You may have just saved everything I've ever built. I won't forget it. He walked back into the private room, and Sofia heard him say, warm and easy, Marcus, my friend, change of plans. My lawyers want one more pass before we sign. Just dotting I's. Let's do it properly. Next week. She heard Crane's voice, just slightly too tight. Everett, we agreed tonight. Momentum matters in these things. Momentum's a young man's game, Everett said pleasantly. I'd rather be sure. Humor an old builder, would you? And the signing didn't happen. Sofia went home that night, not knowing if she'd done anything at all. Maybe Crane would smooth it over. Maybe the deal would happen next week without her. Maybe she'd risked her job for nothing. But she'd broken the silence. After 12 years. And that, at least, she could live with. What Sofia didn't know was what Everett Sloan did over the next 5 days. He didn't sleep much. He took the holding company structure to a forensic team that didn't work for Crane and didn't answer to anyone but him. He had Crane's history pulled apart. Not the polished version in the magazines, but the real one. The one buried under name changes and settled lawsuits and victims who'd been too ashamed to speak. And there it was. A trail of ruined companies stretching back 20 years. Construction firms. Manufacturers. A shipping company. A family-owned vineyard. Good businesses built by self-made people, hollowed out and abandoned. One of them was a construction company. Vega Construction. A man named Hector Vega. 40 employees. A drained pension fund. Exactly as the waitress had said. Everett Sloan sat alone in his office at 3 in the morning, looking at the name of a dead man he'd never met, and understood with a cold certainty how close he'd come. If a waitress hadn't found her courage at exactly the right moment, Everett would have signed those papers, and in 90 days a smiling man would have begun the slow work of taking everything Everett had built from nothing. He'd have lost it the same way Hector Vega did, believing a liar was a friend. And then Everett Sloan, who had not gotten where he was by being a forgiving man toward people who preyed on the trusting, picked up the phone and began, very quietly, to build a trap. The next week, Marcus Crane got a call. Everett Sloan was ready to sign after all. Bigger. Even Everett wanted to bring 2 other investors into the deal, men Crane would love to get his hooks into. A dinner was arranged. The same private room at the Laurel. A celebration. Crane walked in smiling. He did not know that the 2 investors were federal investigators. He did not know that the contracts in front of him had been rewritten to document, in his own initials, the exact fraud he was attempting. He did not know that Everett had spent a week handing prosecutors a case 12 years in the making, with victims who were finally willing to talk. And he did not know that the waitress serving the champagne, the one he'd looked straight through twice now, because the help was never really people to him, was Hector Vega's daughter. Everett had asked her to be there. "You've earned the right to see it," he'd said. "And I think there's something you've waited a long time to say to him." The trap closed fast. The investigators identified themselves. Crane's smile finally completely cracked, and as they stood him up to walk him out, Everett Sloan said the words that ended him. 20 years of this, Everett said. 20 years of finding good people and gutting them and walking away clean. You almost got me too, Marcus. You were good. I'll give you that. He nodded towards Sofia, who had stepped forward, setting down her tray. But you made one mistake. A long time ago, you destroyed a man named Hector Vega, and you never bothered to learn that he had a daughter. The kind of daughter who keeps a promise. Crane looked at Sofia, confused, searching her face. And the thing that happened next was the thing that told Sofia everything she'd ever needed to know. He didn't recognize her. He didn't even recognize the name. Vega? Crane said, frowning, as though flipping through a catalog of faces he'd never bothered to keep. I don't, who? And Sofia Vega, who had carried this man's face in her nightmares for 12 years, looked at the man who'd killed her father and felt the strangest thing settle over her. Not rage, pity, and then, finally, freedom. Hector Vega, she said quietly. Vega Construction. 40 employees. You took everything he had, and you didn't even keep his name in your head long enough to feel bad about it. She shook her head slowly. I spent 12 years thinking you were a monster. But you're not. A monster would at least remember. You're just small. You're a small, empty man who eats people's lives and can't even taste them. She stepped closer. My father built something real with his hands. 40 families ate because of him. When you die, Marcus, no one will be able to say that about you. You took, and you'll leave nothing behind but the wreckage and the people who finally stopped you. She picked her tray back up. His name was Hector Vega. Say it. I wanted to be the last name you hear walking out that door. Crane said nothing. He couldn't. There was nothing in him to say it with. They walked him out, and Marcus Crane's 20-year run was over. Every account frozen, every victim's case reopened, every magazine that had once called him a visionary now calling him what he was. He'd spent his life certain that the people he ruined were too small to matter. He'd been wrong about exactly one of them. Everett Sloan found Sofia on the restaurant's back terrace afterward, where she'd gone to breathe. You okay? He asked. I don't know, she said honestly, looking out at the city. 12 years I dreamed about that, and he didn't even know my father's name. She allowed a shaky breath. I thought it would feel like winning. It just feels quiet. That's because you didn't do it to win, Everett said. He came and stood beside her at the railing. You did it so it wouldn't happen to someone else. That's a different thing. A rarer thing. He was quiet a moment. Do you know how many people knew what Crane was over 20 years? Lawyers, bankers, people who suspected and looked away because it was safer. You're the only one who didn't look away. A waitress with a napkin. He shook his head. You've got more courage in you than every powerful person I've ever met combined. Sofia looked at him. Really looked. This man who'd come up poor like her father had. Who said thank you and meant it. Who'd believed a waitress over a celebrated financier because the waitress was telling the truth. You believed me, she said. In that hallway. You had every reason not to. I was nobody. He was him. And you believed me anyway. Because you weren't trying to get anything, Everett said simply. In my world, that's how you know someone's telling the truth. They want nothing. He turned to face her. Ms. Vega, Sofia, I'd like to do something. And I need you to hear me out before you say no. I told you I don't want your... It's not for you, Everett said. It's for him. Your father. Sofia went still. 40 families lost their jobs when Crane took Vega Construction, Everett said. I build things. Energy. Infrastructure. I employ thousands of people, and I'm always looking for honest contractors who do real work. I'd like to start a division. A construction arm. Named for your father. Run on the principle he ran on. That you take care of the people who work for you. That you build things that last. He held her gaze. I'd like you to help me build it. Not as a gift. As a partner. Because you understand something about loyalty and honest work that I'd pay any amount to have on my side. A small smile. And I have to tell you, Sofia, I'd also just like a reason to keep seeing you. The napkin started it. but I think I'd have wanted to know you anyway. Sofia Vega stood on that terrace, 12 years of grief finally loosening its grip on her chest, and looked at a good man who saw her, really saw her, all of her, exactly as she was, and offered her not a rescue, but a purpose. Vega Construction, she said softly, testing the words. Her eyes filled. My father would have liked that name on a building again. Then let's put it there, Everett said. They did. The Vega division of Sloan Energy broke ground that spring, and Sofia Vega ran it. A woman who'd been invisible behind a tray, now in a hard hat on a job site, employing hundreds of people, taking care of every one of them the way her father had taught her before the world taught her how cruel it could be. Her mother cried at the ribbon cutting. The good kind of crying. And Everett Sloan was there too, of course. Because somewhere between a folded napkin and a building with her father's name on it, the billionaire and the waitress had fallen, quietly and completely, in love. He never once made her feel small. He never once made her feel like a charity case, or a project, or anything but what she was, the bravest, most honest person he'd ever known, who happened to come in a soft and curvy and beautiful shape that he found, more every day, to be exactly his favorite thing in the world. One evening, years later, Everett found his wife standing in front of the first building they'd finished together, looking up at the name carved over the door. Vega, what's that look? He asked, slipping an arm around her. Just thinking about a pen, Sofia said, and a napkin, and how close I came to keeping my mouth shut to keep my job. She leaned into him. 12 years, I thought breaking that silence would be the scariest thing I ever did. It turned out to be the thing that gave me everything. Your father would be proud, Everett said quietly. He'd be proud I didn't look away, Sofia said. He always told me people were good. It got him killed. She looked up at the name over the door, and then at the man beside her. But you know what? He was right. People are good. He just trusted the wrong one. She smiled. I trusted the right one. And Sofia Vega, waitress, builder, daughter, wife, leaned into the man who'd believed her when she was nobody, and finally understood the thing her father had died still believing. That courage costs something, and that it is always, always worth the price. So that's the story of how a waitress with 5 words and 12 years of grief brought down the man who killed her father, and found the love and the purpose she thought she'd lost forever. Marcus Crane spent 20 years certain the people he ruined were too small to matter. And one of them turned out to be the only thing standing between him and getting away with it forever. Sofia proved that the people the powerful overlook are the ones who see them most clearly of all. Did that hallway moment give you chills? Did Sofia's words to Crane make you want to stand up and cheer? If you believe the brave and the honest deserve the happiest endings, go ahead and tap that like button. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it tonight. And subscribe to Elena Love Stories and ring that bell. Because here, the people the world overlooks always, always get the ending they deserve. Now tell me down in the comments, would you have broken the silence or kept your head down to keep your job?